turn it up to see if there's audio? It probably won't be until you see me coming back into the screen here. I doubt. Am I there yet? Any audio yet?
Yes.
Oh, there is audio. Still going. Normally, Lazelle's been shutting it off because for whatever reason, it keeps losing connection to the pulpit box. And so we have to shut it off and restart it anyway. But today it was on. It sounds like it's working, so that'll work well. We're going to go through survey of Old Testament history, and we're still in Exodus. Exodus chapter 19 is where we kind of begin here, but we're going to cover ground really fast. So you can start there if you want to. But again, we're gonna move through this when you look at it. So when you think of the Exodus, you know, they've departed Egypt. They've got a vast host of people, and they really have very, you know, they're just following Moses. You know, we already talked about kind of last time we met how there were more than a dozen people, right? There's tons of people that are going in here. The conditions they came out of in Egypt, you know, they had no self-government. It had fostered no self-government. They were just slaves to the Egyptians at this point. So, you know, there was really, you know, they didn't self-govern themselves. It's prohibited. So they really had no law of their own, no identity when you think about it. So here they are. Well, they're at Sinai, and that's where we find ourselves in Exodus. They're encamped here. And I think we discussed it last time, but they camp here for a very long time as they're going through things. And so we have from Exodus 19 through Exodus 24, we have the giving of the law and kind of the giving of the government. I've used this many times in discussions with folks that when we talk about Exodus and we talk about the law that was handed down, in many cases, you could 100% consider it Israel's constitution. Like, hey, how do we behave as a nation? Well, here's your laws. You know, this is you know, not just individually, but nationally. This is how you behave yourselves, right? And that's why it gave both you know, the crime and the punishment, right? Because that's what's listed in the nation's laws. You know, nations have different punishments for different crimes. That's still the same today. You know, I remember in the 90s when we were in high school, when I was in high school, there was a kid that got caught in China, and I don't know how many of you all remember this, for vandalizing, right? And I can't remember if it was graffiti or what he had done, but it was vandalizing. And there was a huge uproar in America because of what the punishment for vandalizing was in China. And who remembers?
Caning.
Caning.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were going to cane him. And boy, when you watch that caning, and I saw it, I looked it up, you know, that wasn't just, you know, dad hitting you with a belt. That was a guy with a pretty long cane, you know, bamboo, swinging it in a circle and, you know, just smoking him in the back. You know, you think, how did he not break any bones with that, you know? But we don't cane people in America. That's because that's not part of our punishments, right? Who can think of punishments in the Old Testament that they gave that we just simply don't follow today? And this is one of those arguments that people have with us. They're like, oh, the Old Testament says this and you don't do that. You know, you're a heretic or a Pharisee, you know. But you think of, you know, some of it, and some of it was ceremonial. Some of it was not necessarily well, how do I want to word it? Some of those rules were intended to show something, right? That got, a principle. Some of them were principle oriented, right? I know one of the biggest ones, and I'll take this one. The biggest one is, your clothes. Are you wearing mixed threads? Do you got, polyester is poly is a multiple threaded thing. Oh, you're a heretic because you're wearing polyester. Well, no, that's not the application of that in the Christian. That law was given to Israel for very specific purposes, right? And when we look at the law given to Israel, there are practical applications we pull out of that law into our lives. Now, some things are pretty obvious. It's very easy to find out the practical application of thou shalt not kill. Right? Well, what's the practical application of that? Well, don't kill people, right? But then even Jesus went further than that. He's like, don't hate people without a cause. That's the whole principle engaged in there. If you hate your brother without a cause, you may as well just kill them already, right? And yes, Jesus reiterated, 9 of the 10 commandments when you go through it. And absolutely, they're, in that case, you ought to be following them, you ought to be binding them. But I want to be very careful because I don't want to go into the walk into the land of heresy here. But in a very, mild sense, the laws given to Israel were given to Israel. Right now, that's why the Old Testament or the New Testament pulls out the whole thing about, is the law good? Yes, it was. Right, so we ought to follow it. It's not like we're totally exempt from the law now, but these were very much given to Israel, and there's a division there between Israel and this age of today. So we look at Exodus, and now any questions on that? Like I said, that was kind of my monologue on when we look at the law. I know that traditionally the way that we do it is we say this is ceremonial law, this is moral law, and you have to kind of differentiate between the two. But really, all the law has a principle behind it. Right? All of it is applicable in some way, shape, or form into our lives. Right? We don't sacrifice. We don't bring the turtle doves to the temple anymore. Was that a law given to Israel? Yeah, it was. This is what you're going to do. But there was a principle behind it, right? So anyway, y'all pretty much know my my views on that, I think. But so we get into here. They're at Sinai. Of course, we have the golden calf. We have all this that goes on. But then chapter number 20. We have the Decalogue, the 10 words, so to speak. When you look at it, and this is where we traditionally mark when we talk about dispensationalism. This is where we start that fifth dispensation, the law, and this continues to Calvary. Right? This would be the law till Calvary. Right? That dispensation of the law from Sinai to Calvary. Let's word it that way. But Decalogue, D-E-C-A, L-O-G-U-E, the 10 words, is the 10 commandments generally given. These are civil laws, spiritual, social relationships, God's moral standard for man. Has a lot in it. Chapter number 20, begins it here, verses 1 through 11. It gives the what's the word I'm looking for here, but gives the man's responsibility toward God. When you look at it, so it begins, and God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above or is in the earth beneath, that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. But I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me, and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for The Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor, do all thy work. The seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son nor thy daughter, thy manservant nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger as within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, sea and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. First 11 verses are man to God. These are the obligations, right? That you're going to have no other gods. You're not going to make any graven imagery, no idolatry. You're not going to, you're going to guard God's holiness against profanity, and you're going to worship God absent of secularism, right? Absent from the flesh and things like that. You're going to remember the Sabbath, and you're going to keep it holy. Remember, Jesus said that man wasn't made for the Sabbath, but the Sabbath for the man. The principle there is that there ought to be some rest in your life. And I know some of you are going to laugh at me about that, but there ought to be days of rest, some time to take a rest there. And of course, there is a rest to come for the people of God, right? We move from there, man's obligation towards man, right? So we have man's obligation towards God in the first 11 verses there. Then we have man's obligation towards man in verses 12 through 17. We won't fully read through all those again, but we have, honor your father and your mother, shalt not kill, shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, and thou shalt not covet. Right? Shalt not covet. So you've got these, towards manward. These are the things that you don't do to other men, right? To mankind when you go through. Then, from chapters 21 through 24, we get what might be called those social ordinances. Right? This is that constitutional ordinance, the laws. And I'm probably walking away from the microphone, which isn't a good thing since I didn't put the lapel mic on. But the social ordinances, when you go through these, and like I said, we're going to move through these pretty quick. Chapter 21, 1 through 36, is the rights of people, and you have the regulation of slavery, right? Not just something to do. And I know that maybe we'll break off on one of these days and do a whole thing on this slavery aspect, because that is one of the arguments people are going to come, oh, God condones slavery. Well, no, God regulated it. And when you read through it, it's certainly not what most people view slavery as today, right? That's not what it is there. But regulation of slavery is 1 through 11. 12 through 27 is the wrongs done to fellow mankind. These are the reparations, so to speak. 28 to 36, injuries due to carelessness. And yes, there are repercussions for that. I don't just get a plead, temporary insanity. These are negligence, things like that. Chapter 22, 1 through 15, covers the rights of property, the laws dealing with theft, laws dealing with dishonesty, going through that. 22:16 through 23:19, personal integrity, good section to read and apply there. Conduct, administration of justice, and observing of feast days falls into there. Chapter 23, 20 through 33, is deal with promises that you make and the blessings for loyalty there and in God's presence. So I know I said there that we were going to breeze through a bunch of chapters really quick, and that's what we just did. So as you go over a survey of this Old Testament, that's what's in there from 19 through 23. When we hit chapter number 24, you have, if you will, and I don't want to call it ratification because that's what we used in America, but you have the acceptance of the law by the Jewish folks. They say, where is it at here? so you have the people that say, and I know it's in here. So God, Moses, come up to me, Joshua. Anyway, they accept it. All that the Lord hath said we will do, and the acceptance is there. So then we hit into chapter number 25. And the balance, and we don't have much time, but the balance of today will cover this. I think, were the majority, was everybody there when I went through, how many weeks did I go through the tabernacle? It was a couple months, I think, we went through it. You may not have been that time, but everybody else was here, right? So I might have to give you some further notes, but at this point in the lecture, it is a covering of the tabernacle, because 25 begins with that, right? 25 is Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, that they bring me an offering of every man, an offering of every man that giveth it willingly with his heart. You shall take my offering. This is the offering which you shall take of them: gold, silver, brass, blue, purple, scarlet, fine linen, goat's hair, ram skins, dyed red, badger skins, shittim wood. We talked about that the wood that they used, and it's most likely to be acacia wood. If you're familiar with acacia, I think that's how you pronounce it, acacia wood. And anybody who remembers the properties of that shittim and the acacia wood, that made it ideal for tabernacle use. Anybody have acacia wood stuff at home? They make it now it's very popular for cutting boards and for bowls, even dishes.
Hardwood.
What's that? It's a hardwood. Yep, it's a hardwood. But it's unique among the hardwoods because it has some pretty special properties. You remember?
It doesn't tend to rot. I don't remember.
Correct. It doesn't tend to rot, right? It's resistant to rotting. But the other thing that I think is also extremely important towards the tabernacle is that acacia is the lightest hardwood. It's a very lightweight hardwood. When you go and grab an acacia bowl, I mean, honestly, you will think you're picking up a piece of balsa wood. Like it's, you know what balsa wood is, right? I mean, you'll grab it and you'll be like, what? You know, because you'll think it's heavier than it is. We've actually got some acacia cutting boards downstairs in the kitchen. But why do you suppose being lightweight would be convenient?
Because of moving around.
Because there's a lot of it, yeah. I mean, the tabernacle wasn't just, a couple pieces of 2x4s. You know, it was a bunch of stuff. And what did they overlaid some of it with? Heavy stuff, yeah, gold, you know. It had some pounded gold, some silver in some of it, copper, brass, I mean, all kinds of metals on it. So it would have been, and I'm not saying that the burden was light, but if you'd had to use ash or oak, it would have been a lot heavier than it was. So I think providentially, God knowing everything, it's a very good word to pick. It doesn't rot, very lightweight. So they do all this. Important thing to note, of course, is that it was done willingly. They didn't take you didn't take an offering. It wasn't forced offering. Let everyone give out of his heart. And the interesting thing about this was what happened. I mean, you all know, I think, like they had to return stuff. They had too much. I gave them all kinds of stuff, right? And so there was a very heart, the people's heart were in it when you look at it. So you had the tabernacle, excuse me, and then you had, the whole listing of items that appear in it. Exodus 25 to 40 covers the making of this. 25:8, let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. So this was the dwelling place of God. When you look at it, materials that were given: metals, fabrics, skins, wood, oil, precious stones. that are found in here. I went backwards, I think, when we taught the lesson. But the first thing that we're given given the account of what to make is the Ark of the Covenant, verses 10 through 22. About 3.5 by 2.25 by 2.25 feet. So, you think of it, it wasn't this like, it wasn't the size of that table. It was an ark, small ark, relatively, overlaid with gold. It was type of, you had the acacia wood, overlaid with gold. So you had this type, and this is a consistent type throughout the tabernacle, of Christ's humanity in the wood and Christ's deity around it. So like the duality, the dual nature there. What did it contain? 3 things.
Take your notes.
Tables of the law.
Yeah.
Yep. What else? Aaron's rod that budded. And then one other thing. The manna, a pot of manna. So you had a pot of manna, you had tables of the law, you had Aaron's rod that budded, that were contained in there. All reminders, in the grand scheme of things, all reminders to them of God, right? A reminder of his provision, Aaron's rod, and Aaron's rod, that's a whole nother study when we talk about, almonds and things like that. Beautiful pictures there, when you think about that. And then the tables of the law, of God's law, remember his deliverance, remember his sustenance there, and remember his laws. Next, 23 through 30, we have the table of showbread. It's S-H-E-W, showbread. Representative, there's 12 loaves, 12 tribes for which God made provision each Sabbath day there. When you look at it, the bread looked forward to Christ, right? It was called the bread of life. So you had the table of showbread found in there. You had the golden candlestick, verse 31 through 40. 7 branches, that number of completion, of perfection. It was the only light in the tabernacle in there. So you had the candlestick. Christ is the only light when you think about it. In today's dollars, well, probably be more than when this was written. But that candlestick would be worth about $35,000, just the candlestick. So you think about, and this was written in like the 80s.
It's much different now.
Yeah, it'd probably be hundreds of thousands of dollars based on the price of gold when you think about it. We looked it up, actually. What did we look up?
I think it was like 3 million, 1.3 million, 2.1 million, something.
Yeah, during that study of the tabernacle, we got, they had the adding of all the gold, like the poundage and stuff. And we looked it up, and it was millions of dollars worth of gold found in this, right? So they had the golden candlestick that was given there as well, and that's verse 31 through 40. Starting in chapter number 26 in Exodus, we have the general construction of the tabernacle. When you look at it, linen curtains, 10 in all, white, blue, purple, and scarlet. We generally speaking, they'll look at it and they'll be white's purity, blue's heaven, purple's royalty, scarlet's blood. 31 through 37 had the veil and the outer hanging. So you had, when you look at the tabernacle, of course, you had the courtyard, then you had the holy place, and then you had the Holy of Holies, beyond the holy place. So you had an outer hanging, and then you had the veil, holy place from the Holy of Holies, the veil, only the priest could go, high priest could go once a year. And then you had the separation, the outer hanging separated the holy place from the outside world. And the priests were to enter into there daily, right? Enter into there daily. The court, chapter 27, talks about the outer court there. In the outer court, you had the brazen altar. It would have been right at the door of the tabernacle, used for burnt offerings. Brass is a type for judgment. So when you look at that brazen altar, it was an altar of judgment. Court hangings, there was fine linen, meaning it, and that was kind of symbolic of the fact that righteousness was required to be in there, and there was only one way in. There was one gate into the courtyard. It's as if there's only one way. Oil was found, used out there as well, 20 and 21 verses, chapter 27, verses 20, 21. Beaten oil had to be beaten, oil, not pressed, from the olives. They used it to produce light. Of course, oil is used as a type of the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of God. Related to the tabernacle, chapter number 28 starts to give the description of the priesthood. You look to the priesthood. Who was it set up to be through? The priesthood?
Originally the firstborn.
So specifically though, so the Levites were the servants of the priesthood, right? That Levitical priesthood. The Levites were the servants of the priesthood. But who, for the high priest lineage, who was it supposed to be? The high priest lineage, the actual priesthood, was set up to be Aaron and his sons. That's chapter 28, verses 1 through 5. When you look at it, I know we always say the Levitical priesthood when you look at it, but the high priest, the priests were actually of the lineage of Aaron. Right? The Levites would be the support for the tabernacle, temple and tabernacle. It says, take chapter 28, take thou unto thee Aaron thy brother, sons with him, among the children of Israel, that he may minister unto me in the priest's office, even Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, Eleazar, Ithamar, Aaron's sons. And thou shalt make holy garments for Aaron thy brother, for glory and for beauty. You ever think about, for future priests, they had to try and, stay the same weight that Aaron was? Bob's like, come on. Yep. Oh, you better stop eating. You don't fit in Aaron's garments anymore. So it's time to lose some weight. You got 1 month until Yom Kippur. You better lose some weight. Where you going there? Am I the only one that thinks that's comical? That's what the girdle was for. That's what the girdle was for. Make holy garments for Aaron thy brother, for glory and for beauty. Speak unto all them that are wise-hearted, whom I have filled with the spirit of wisdom, that they may make Aaron's garments, consecrate him. In the priest's office, these are the garments, right? So then these are the garments that they made for the priest. They had the ephod, 6 tribes on each shoulder, the breastplate, the often forgotten Urim and Thummim, U-R-I-M. Thummim is Thummim. The robe of the ephod, mitre, white turban, gold head plate, holiness to the Lord, and then the regular priest garments, verses 39 through 43. In chapter number 29, we move into this, and this is the consecration of the priesthood. There's a washing in here. They give them the clothing and the anointing, and then they talk about the food, right? The food, starting in verse 23, he talks about 1 loaf of bread, 1 cake of oiled bread, 1 wafer out of the basket of the unleavened bread that is for the Lord. Thou shalt put all in the hands of Aaron and the hands of his sons. Shall wave them for a wave offering for the Lord, shall receive them of their hands, and they would burn them on the offering. So this is that consecration. Chapter number 29. chapter number 30. Again, we're breezing through this, but we're already past our time. Come back on some of this. You had an explanation of the altar of incense and some of the obligations. The altar of incense was made of acacia wood overlaid with gold, placed before the veil, incense offered twice a day, kind of a picture of the prayers that are ascending. Verses 11 through 16 of chapter 30 talks about ransom money paid with half a shekel. Everybody paid it. Everybody needed redemption. Brazen laver. And this is an awesome study, I think. Brazen laver, when you think about it. Where they make a laver of brass to wash in. Aaron and his son shall wash their hands and their feet when they go in. Later on in the scriptures, it talks about the fact that that was made out of the looking glasses of the Egyptians. So it could have been a very highly polished surface. It was a mirror finish. And think about the cleansing. When the priest went to cleanse themselves, they had to look in that. What would they see? They would see themselves, right? And I think that that's a picture of the fact that in order to be cleansed, you must first see yourself for what you are. Dirty person, however you want to word it there, right? But you had that brazen laver, anointing oil, talks about that in 22 through 33, and then 34 through 38, again, all verses, the incense needed, how to make it, when to use it. It has to be there. Interesting enough, right? Because you've got that sweet incense that's made there, taken of these sweet spices, stacte, onycha, galbanum, these sweet spices with pure frankincense. Each shall there be a like weight, so all four together, like portions. Make a perfume, that'll be pure and holy. Shall beat some of it very small, put it before the testimony of the tabernacle where I meet with thee. It shall be unto you most holy. As for the perfume which thou shalt make, you shall not make to yourselves according to the composition thereof. It shall be unto thee holy for the Lord. It wasn't something to be taken lightly, right? It was only for this purpose. But then 38, whosoever shall make like unto that, to smell thereto, like this is an imitation of the real thing, shall be cut off from his people. You're gone, right? You don't imitate the Lord. And of course, this would be a lot of applications here, but specifically to the Lord. There's no imitation for Jesus. If you make an imitation that, it smells like the gospel, looks like the gospel, but it's not actually the gospel, well, there's no salvation then. You're cut off from the people of God. You won't make it, so to speak, right? All these pictures in the tabernacle. Again, I think we spent months going through these, so I feel bad going through them in like 10 minutes here. But every one of these just has beautiful pictures of who God is, how salvation works, who we are in our relationship to God. Right? This was the meeting place of God. When we go to meet God, we see all these things, right? Who He is, who we are, how our actions weigh up according to His, how our imitations are not acceptable to Him, things like that. So, the incense. Chapter 31 talks about the calling of the workmen, and the two names, big names, Bezaleel, Bezaleel, and Aholiah, Aholiah. When I get to heaven, they will correct me on my pronunciation. They will probably correct everybody. Right? So Bezaleel was the son of Hur. of the tribe of Judah. And then Aholiab was the son of Ahisamach, tribe of Dan. Right. He gave them wisdom. Gave both of them wisdom for the cunning works, how to make all these things. How to make all these things. So, Sabbath is restated. Don't forget the Sabbath while you're doing all of this. And then verse number 18 here is Moses given the two tables of testimony. Chapter 31, verse 18. So you think of, I suppose we should stop there. Well, no, I've only got one more page. Let's continue. Sorry. But when you look at this, here's Moses. He's up there. He's given the 10 Commandments. He's giving this whole stuff with the tabernacle, everything that needs to be made. And then you get to 31:18, and God gives him two tables of stone. Right, written with the finger of God, right? Two tables of testimony. And then we hit 32, right? And what's 32? Everybody, we just talked about it Wednesday already. Last Wednesday, maybe it wasn't. Right? It all mixes together on me sometimes. But you get the broken covenant. Where's this Moses at? You know, he's just been up in Mount Sinai getting the words of God for you. Testimonies. We have the golden calf. Out of this, it popped up out of nowhere. Broken tablets that God just gave to him. And he goes down, and the tablets are broken. 3,000 are slain by the Levites. Chapter 33 and 34. You have the restoration of the law, so they had already broken the covenant, so to speak, waiting for Moses in 32, 33, and 34. You have the Lord speaking to Moses again, gives him a vision, and the law is restored. It's given the second tables of the stone of the law in chapter number 34. The Lord said unto Moses, hew thee two tables of stone like unto the first. And I will write upon these tables the words that were in the first tables, which thou breakest. Gives him a task. You need to go get me two stones that were like unto the first one, and then I'll write on. Right? I'll write on. And so the second tables are given to Moses. There's a lesson in there. We won't go into that, but look at it. God told Moses to go get two tables, and then he'll write them. Then, of course, they get that. You have the commission and the ceremonies talked about there as well. Feast of Unleavened Bread is brought up in chapter number 34 as we go through it. And then other than that, real short, we have chapters 35 through 39. The tabernacle is assembled. Items are made. Everything's brought into one spot. Furnishing and items are re-described in more detail. This is where we find out, that the laver was made out of the looking glasses of the Egyptians and things like that. A little bit more detail given in 35 through 39. And then chapter number 40 is the tabernacle setup for the first time. Of course, that hits God's glory, fills the tent. And then we have the end of a chapter there. Israel is to start heading and moving. And that would finish Exodus. Maybe dry today. Really, any thoughts, questions, things to look at? Like I said, it's real, the survey of the history, it's difficult for me because I just want to dig into everything. That's why we're always late. But that's the timeline as you look through the book of Exodus. Thoughts? Right, well, we will adjourn for the day. I've got to, next Saturday is obviously not a good Saturday because it's the beginning of the revival begins the day after. And so, which means that I think the Saturday after that